Hey guys, welcome to another video. This time we're going to do an IP camera video, and specifically about NX Witness. Last time I showed you which features I liked and why I chose to run this software NVR, and this time we're going to do a basic install on some power efficient hardware, which should be sufficient to at least run a few cameras, but this video is also kind of a test for that. So join along and we'll do a basic install and see how it runs. In other news, I've also been testing some new 8 megapixel Dahua cameras, and I'm moving them around to several test setups, etc. And I hope to have that video finished somewhere next month. So stick around for that. But first, I'd like to start with a little bit of feedback I received. No, NX Witness isn't the only software NVR out there. There's lots of them, and they all have their pros and cons. I just happened to stumble across NX Witness and like it. That's why I'm making these videos, because I like it. I don't get sponsored by them, I don't get anything from them. I just like their software, and I think more people should know about it. If you want to use something open source or free, that's fine. If you want to use something that's a lot cheaper, like Blue Iris, again, that's fine. You should use what you want to use. For me, I like NX Witness, and I don't mind paying the price that comes with it. So, there we have it. And if you don't like that, maybe skip the video. And if you do, let's continue. As I mentioned previously, I run my NX Witness install in an Ubuntu VM on one of my virtualization servers. But I can understand the need or the desire to run it on a hardware box if you don't have a virtualization server like that. So the machine I'm going to use in this example is this one, and it's spec'd to only be the server. You can hook up a monitor and stuff like that to it, of course, but it's not meant to decode multiple 8 megapixel cameras and show it on a screen. I use my mobile phone, tablets, and my desktop computers for that, but if you do want to do that, you need to buy a more beefy machine than this. With that said, what is this? Well, this is a Miele PCG35, and that isn't that important. What is important is that it's a quad-core Intel Apollo Lake CPU with 4 GB of memory and 32 GB of eMMC storage that comes in the box. It's mostly around $179, but the price on AliExpress can fluctuate a little bit. But basically, it's a fanless quad-core machine in which you can install a physical 1 or 2 terabyte hard drive. You can install Linux on the built-in storage partition, and for under $200, you have a passively cooled, very efficient machine, which is actually plenty fast in my experience. From what I've measured before, this box will draw about 6 to 13 watts from the wall, depending on how busy it is, but I've added the little hard disk, so I'll do a little power measurement at the end and see what it's using when we have added a few cameras. As I mentioned, this has an internal 1 terabyte hard disk because I built it in there. Here's some pictures of what it looks like inside, but you can also use one of the external USB 3 ports to add some storage, or link it to your NAS, which I will do later in this video. So, to get started, we need to create a USB stick with Ubuntu 18.04 LTS. Newer versions aren't officially supported, and this version is only officially supported on NX Witness Beta 4.0, but that's what we'll be trying out because, well, it's a good chance for me to look at it too. So, create a USB stick, and you basically download the ISO file. I use the net install ISO, I'll link that in the description. And you use Rufus, that's a tool, again in the description. Check everything in the description. Also affiliate links for these machines and stuff like that. To create this USB stick with which you can install the little box. To start off the install, on this particular machine, I changed the BIOS setting from Windows to Linux, so that all the devices it presents will be compatible with the Linux install. I'm not going to go through all the options of the installer. I'm basically just doing a basic install with all default options. and I install Ubuntu to the onboard 32 eMMC memory, which is plenty for Linux. Okay, once that's up and running, I look up the IP address because we can switch from my camera recording the screen to you seeing an SSH session because we're going to do everything on the command line. Normally, you change the IP to a static IP or make a DHCP lease for this machine, but that isn't part of this how-to tutorial or whatever you'd like to call it. Okay, PuTTY is connected. Let's finish with, installing the packages we need and then NX Witness. First, we do a standard update and upgrade to make sure we have all the latest packages installed, but since I used the net install ISO, that should have automatically been done. Then I'm going to install some packages which I like to use, and those are dstat, htop, nano, gdisk and wget. You can do so also. Oh, before I forget, all the commands executed will be available in a blog post linked in the description, and there you can follow along for the command line things I perform at your own pace. So make sure to take a look at that. Okay, now that we've remotely connected to our machine, let's make the 1TB storage hard drive available so we can use it later. I'm not going to go through detailed steps because this is just basically how you add a disk in Ubuntu. But again, if you want to read it at your own pace and I'll add some more commentary, check out the blog post. Okay, disk is available, so let's continue with getting the install file for NX Witness. To do so, we go to the NX Witness website, linked in the description. I'm going to stop saying that. And there you have to log in with your NX Cloud account. If you don't have an account, they're free, and you can just create one and then log in. Once you have that, as I said, we're going to download the beta of 4.0, and we're going to download the Windows client and the Linux server install. Yes, you can also run the server on Windows, but in general I've found that especially with machines with limited resources like this, it's a lot more lenient or efficient to run Linux on it than Windows. And it saves the license, so hey. Okay, once we have the URL to download the package, we're going to put that URL in the command line to wget that package. And then we're going to install that package by running dpkg-i and then the package name. Now, I suspect this will fail as you see it doing on my system. That's because this install file needs some other packages we didn't install, but we can quickly fix that by using a autofix command for apt-get. To do that, we do a sudo apt-get install -f, and it'll ask you if it needs to correct the missing packages. You hit yes, and it'll install the missing packages, and also automatically continue installing NX Witness. And now we're basically done at the command line. So you open up the NX Witness client, and if you're on the same network, it should find the server you just installed. Once you click on it, it'll ask you to set an admin password, and then you're into your running NX-Witness NVR machine. So the first thing I'm going to change is a setting that's default enabled, and that's a setting that will automatically adjust your camera quality depending on the needs at that current time. And you can set like frames per second and stuff like that in your NX-Witness schedules. Now that doesn't work correctly with all cameras, and with mine, with previous versions, it didn't work, so I'm going to disable that for now. Second, let's check if NX-Witness found our 1TB hard disk. To do that, we go to the left side and click on the properties for our server, go to storage management, and there we see two options, the internal SSD, which we're not using, and then the 1TB hard disk. Click on enable, and well, it's going to use that 1TB hard disk to store the footage. Another cool thing is that we can add a graph of the resource utilization of our NX-Witness server. In our case, this little box. So let's add that and see what happens to it once we start adding cameras. Okay, let's start adding cameras. And NX-Witness has a very nice feature where you can do a subnet scan with your username and password, and it will find most of the generate cameras it knows and add them to your list. Okay, cameras added, and I'm still really in love with this interface, which is very quick and allows you to zoom in and zoom out and switch between cameras and stuff like that. But let's continue. Now, NX-Witness is free to use as long as you don't record any cameras, but you can enable a 30-day trial with which you can record 4 cameras and use all their features. But I'm going to add a different license, which I'll transfer over from my own box, with which we can record more cameras to basically be able to stress this little machine. When enabling recording for a camera, motion detection is automatically enabled, especially because I'm enabling the low-high recording feature. Nowadays, most cameras have 2 feeds, the full quality 4K one in my case, and a lower quality one which you can use for the general overview or for the motion detection as we're doing. So once I enable the low-high schedule, motion detection is enabled automatically on all the cameras we're recording, and as you can see in the graph, that does put some more load on our system. Okay, we're at 4 cameras right now, and this is 4 8-megapixel cameras which are running in H.265, and as you can see, CPU usage is still pretty much under control, so let's continue adding some more. Okay, we're now at recording 10 8-megapixel cameras with low-high motion detection recording, and as you can see, CPU usage has risen, but this little quad-core machine, it's doing fine. It's currently utilizing about 15 watt, and that's with the hard disk inside of it. And I think that's pretty good, even if you have it running for 24 hours a day. So the last thing I promised I'd show you is how to connect your NAS to this little machine, so you can use network storage either to archive your footage or actually live record it to your NAS if you don't want to have an internal disk in this machine. That's what I also do in my VMs, and that works well. So I've reconfigured my NAS to present an NFS share, and we're going back to the command line to mount that NFS share and then telling NX-Witness to use it. So first we're going to install another package, the NFS common package, because we need an NFS client. And then I'm going to create a directory and then mount the NFS share to it, see if that works, and I'm going to edit the fstab file again to make sure this gets mounted during boot. Okay, after the reboot, this seems successful. So let's open up NX Witness again and tell it to now use the NFS share to write its footage. Okay, it sees the disk and you can easily enable it. And you can have both enabled so that it will fill up both storage, or you can choose which storage you'd like to use. So that's it for this basic install video. As you can see, NX Witness doesn't have that high requirements at all. It doesn't need special video cards and all kinds of stuff like that. It runs on a basic sub $200 machine just fine. And well, this is even passively cooled, so it doesn't even make any noise. I'll make another video in the future where we'll delve into some more advanced features. So instead of using software motion detection, you can now use in-camera hardware motion detection to even alleviate some of the stress we've now put on this machine to do the motion detection for us, and move that load over to the camera, which would make it even more versatile. And we'll also take a look at adding some rules to our camera, with which you can do some more advanced scenarios like sending you a message when motion is detected or something else. In the past, I've particularly had fun with basically creating an object missing sound which would play if someone touched an object on a table and they couldn't figure out how that was working. But as I said, that will be another video. I'm working on the 8 megapixel camera update video. Basically an update from the cameras I did last year with newer models that came out since then, and see if they're better or not. And well, I hope you liked the video. If you like to discuss more about IP cameras or your setup, join our Discord server and subscribe to the channel. Hope to see you back next time. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.